this computer. Okay, great. So let's have a go, and we'll be looking at reproduction from the reproductive part. So this will be like a little piece of revision as it relates to the Sunday's bottom. All right, so the first one, testes. First of all, before we get into that, is reproduction important? If I were to ask you that question, is reproduction important? Right.
Yes.
Why is reproduction important?
So it's the procreation of life. If we don't reproduce, we would have more humans.
If we don't reproduce, what will happen from a biological perspective?
Extinction.
Extinction, yeah. Disappearance will disappear. So that is why reproduction is so important. And when you think about it, the body, the machine, it invests a lot into reproduction. It invests a lot. So for instance, if we were to look at from the male perspective in terms of the male contribution to the prospect, we're looking at sperm. If you were to look at a typical, let's say, ejaculate from a male, which is approximately 1 teaspoon of semen, how many sperm do you think is present in a teaspoon of semen? How many sperm? How much? What do you think? In a teaspoon, how many sperm in there?
2 million. 2 million.
2 million, 2 billion. All right, so we have 2 billion. We have on the order of millions, somebody is saying. All right. You'll be pleasantly surprised to find out how many in there. Right, not on the order, it's on the order, right? It contains so we're looking at approximately, in each milliliter, we have 100 million sperm. So therefore, in a 5 milliliter, which is like a teaspoon, you have 500 million sperm, which is, if you're looking at 1,000 million as a billion, we're looking at 500 million sperm in a teaspoon. So in other words, when you look at an ejaculate from a male, we're looking at 500 million. And why it is, now think about it, all you need is one to fertilize an egg, but you're looking at 500 million. And the reason why is it? Because it is so important. Reproduction is so important. You want to cover all the odds. That's pretty good odds. 1 in 500 million, not bad odds, right? So always remember that. Very important. That is why so much investment. We have 500 million sperm, right? Just to fertilize one egg. We only need one. Right? And it points to the fact, the importance of reproduction, because without it, this is the main, when you think about it biologically, this is the reason we are here. Full stop. We are only here to reproduce, because if we stop reproducing, we disappear as a species, right? So from a biological perspective, we're here to reproduce. Pass on, that's it. And because of that, we invest so much, the body invests so much in the reproductive process, 500 million sperm for one egg. You know, you could have just said, well, let me just send down 2 sperm. Yeah, you could have done that, but what could have possibly happened in that case, right? You would have had issues arising, all right? Yeah, I didn't realize you could have drawn this. That's particularly interesting, you know? You could draw, you could draw with your little wiki. That's cool. Okay, let's go forward. Let's go back to the question. So, testes. When you look at the testes, where they lie within what structure out of all of these here? What structure do they lie in?
Scrotum.
And when we look at the scrotum, where's the scrotum located? Right? When you look at the scrotum, for a male, right, the scrotum lies outside of the body. And why is it that the scrotum, would you have the scrotum lying outside of the body? Is there a particular reason?
Yeah, because the sperm needs to be, I think, 2 degrees lower than body temperature.
You hit the nail on the head. That's specific. Yes, yeah. When you say, body temperature, not core temperature, right? Because core temperature, what is your core temperature?
37 degrees.
What you saying? Like everybody on top of things today, boy. Yeah, it's 37 degrees, right? So, and where's your body temperature? That's the core. So that's what is inside, let's say when you're looking at between brain and gut, right? There's 37 degrees And what's your body temperature on average? What's your body temperature?
So 36.
Well, 37 is your core. Here it has it as 37. 37 is 37.2 a fever, 37 normal body temperature. Yeah, so 37, they're using it as, what I really wanted to get at was this diagram here. Right, so whereas your core is really 37, which is towards the center of your body, right? But outside it could get a little cooler. Very important, the testes lie outside of the body because of the fact, as your colleague said, it needs a temperature of approximately 2 degrees. So that means on the area, on the region of, let's say, around 35 for maximal sperm production to occur. So therefore, if somebody is having, let's say, issues with production, a male, he has a low sperm count, what would be the best situation for him, boxers or briefs?
Boxers.
Right? So boxers or briefs, which one would be better for him to wear?
Brief.
I say boxers, sir. And more spacious.
I think it's boxers too.
It could move about, sir. Boxers.
Right,
Yeah.
so his equipment will, so boxers or briefs. So if you have a look here, this is a boxers and this is brief. If he has a low sperm count, which one would be better for him to wear?
Boxers.
Boxers, because one of the things, yeah, it allows then both his penis and his scrotum to move about freely and
I
not
need
to be,
space
yeah, give it space. Whereas with a brief, it will hold it close to the body.
closer to the body. Yeah.
And therefore it could increase the temperature by conduction. The heat from the body could increase the temperature. So it one this, or, you know, one of my somebody in another class say, none at all, you know, go commando as it were. Ideally wear something like a kilt. That's probably the best situation, you know, where it is freely swinging, right? That's the best, and you know, you have air circulating around it to keep it cool, because lower temperatures actually favors sperm production, okay? Let's look at another question. An erection of the penis is caused by, which one of these? Erection of the penis. Which one is it caused by when you're thinking?
Arterial blood? I don't know.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, when you think of an erection, right, all it is, when you're looking at a male erection, right, in terms of the penis moving from the flaccid to the erect state, it fills with blood, right? The corpus cavernosum fills with blood. This is it here. And blood fills it, and that is how you actually get the erection. So here it is in the flaccid state, no blood, and in the erect state, it is filled with blood. That's how actually it gets in this state. So one of the things recently, of course, there are issues sometimes. Some people, if we have to look at the next question, some people have issues in terms of getting an erection. And what is this condition called? Impotence. Is this a big problem among men globally? What do you think? Oh yeah, big problem. But they don't like to talk about it, right?
No.
Yeah, that's not something, hey boy, you know. Yeah, it's not something that's spoken about.
My mic not working.
Pardon?
Oh, no, so I thought my mic wasn't working. Sorry.
Okay, it's all good. Yeah, but it is a big problem globally. But one company was able to jump on that and actually make a bundle, right? And of course, that good people at Pfizer, right? They came up with the drug for impotence. Everybody remember the name of it? It begins with V.
Viagra.
Oh yeah. This has been their cash cow. We're talking billions of dollars, billions with a B. How does Viagra work? Anybody has an idea? Now think about it. Okay, see if you could guess. All right. So
it wasn't intended for.
No, it wasn't intended for that.
Yeah, correct. But how does it work? What does it do?
Increase the blood flow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how would you increase blood flow? If you're thinking about, we know about arteries and veins. So how would you increase blood flow? Pardon?
Raise your pressure.
Yeah.
Well, both of you are correct. Vasodilation. I like how you're thinking. Right? So if you increase, Pardon? Go ahead. Right? So if you could increase the blood flow, quite right, by vasodilation, right, you will get the this area being engorged in blood, and now you could get the erection. And that's exactly what it does in terms of how Viagra works. And so one of the things that causes vasodilation is a gas called nitric oxide. Right? So nitric oxide, let's have a look if we were to look at it, nitric oxide and vasodilation. Oops, I know I spelled it wrong. Nitric oxide, nearly every type of cell, it's a vasodilator. So what actually Viagra does, it makes the tissues in your body more sensitive to nitric oxide. So in particular, then, if you're looking at the penis, so nitric oxide is produced in your body. So you have certain basal levels. So if now it makes it more sensitive, then you would have, let's say, you'll have vasodilation occurring, not only there, but all over your body, but particularly in the region of the penis, vasodilation. Now the blood will be able to fill the corpus cavernosum, and now you'll be able to get an erection. And that has been their billion-dollar cash cow. They have made billions with a capital B off of Viagra. Yeah? Yeah, so that is how Viagra works. It just increases the sensitivity of the arteries in your body, causing to nitric oxide, which leads to vasodilation. Right? So vasodilation, blood now will be able to rush into the penis, and now you're able to get an erection. Right? And as you rightly said, it wasn't made for that originally. It was made for something else. But one of the interesting things, I remember when I was in school, we had a visit from Merck, a guy from Merck, and he was telling me, look, he was one of the researchers at Merck. He was talking to the class, and he was like, he was working there for 20 years. And for the 20 years, they didn't find anything that went to market. Right? But they do research. They do research. And sometimes, of course, when they do research, they would get results, they would archive it, and then somebody else might come in and use it for a totally different purpose. And that was the case, with Viagra. Right? They use it for another purpose, and then somebody was like, wait a minute, maybe if we increase the sensitivity, we could use it for a vasodilator, and it could be used for infertility. And that made them billions of dollars. That was their cash cow drug, as I mentioned. Okay, let's go forward. Seminal fluid, what is it composed of?
Sperm.
Sperm, okay, that is true. Right, so we have sperm. Does it have anything else in it?
Yes.
Yes.
What else?
All of the above, right?
All of the above, yeah. Secretions from the
Yeah.
prostate, seminal, and bulbourethral
Yeah.
gland. Now, what are those secretions, and let's say, what do they do? The secretions of bulbo. Urethral gland, prostate, seminal. Right? So when you look at those secretion from those, very interesting. What specifically do they do? They contribute to you have to remember, okay, the sperm has to go quite a bit of a journey in terms of its length. Let me put it in perspective. How far does the sperm have to travel after ejaculation into the vaginal region? How far does it have to travel? If a sperm was 6 feet tall, if you can imagine that, had the ability to walk. All right, everybody familiar with Costart in San Fernando?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, so for those of us who are familiar in Costart with San Fernando, anybody at all? You're familiar with it? Costart in San Fernando? Right. How far would you have to walk? A, from the top level to downstairs. B, from the top level to the top of Sutton Street. Or C, from there up to Monrepo roundabout. If the sperm was 6 feet tall and had the ability to walk, how far would it have to go in terms of moving from getting to the neck of the fallopian tube where fertilization occurs? How far would it have to walk? Well, it would have to walk from Costard and San Fernando to Monrepo roundabout, which is about close to about a mile and a half. So just imagine in terms, now shrink that down to the size of a sperm, right? A sperm is nothing more than what, 0.5 micrometers in size, but that's the distance it has to travel, right? Now, how big is a sperm, you might ask, right? Let me see, Utah, Chin. Nope, sorry. Okay, I'm not seeing it. Relative size of things. And I sent it for you. I wanted to show you. Let me look at that. Let me just look real quick to that site I sent for you all. The relative size of things. I think I sent it to you earlier this week. Holy Sino Farm. I'm not seeing. Oh yes, genetics.utah.edu. Right. All right. So if you were to look here, if you were to come to this site, and I sent this site to you all, right? We get an idea of how big things are. So everybody familiar with a grain of rice,
Yes, sir.
right? Right, and Times Regular where you're typing, the 12 size font, 12 point, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is the sizes here, and you're going in. First thing you come in sesame seed, you have a grain of salt, which is approximately 0.5 millimeters across. And if you keep going, you're coming to amoeba, a paramecium, which is a microorganism, a skin cell, which is 30 micrometers across. Hello! What we have here, human egg, diameter 130 micrometers across. And down here, in terms of the relative size, is 60 by 5 micrometers across. So if you were to look at the head, however, it's about 5 micrometers. So in terms of the width or the diameter, and this is where the genetic material is. So relative, if you think about it, 5 into 13, 8, 5 into 2 5s are 10, is about 16. A human egg is approximately 16 times as large as the size of the nucleus of the sperm, right? Or the head of the sperm in terms of the diameter. It's 16 times larger, right? So which is why when we think of the mitochondria that we inherit, we get most of the mitochondria from our mother. Because when this happens, when they have fertilization, the mitochondria that are there, when division occurs, they become compartmentalized in the divisions. And they themselves, they reproduce independently of the egg. Right, so they continue to reproduce, and then that's how you have mitochondria within an egg. But as you could see, this is why we get most of our mitochondria from our mother, right, and not from our father. Most of the mother, we just a little bit, if any at all. We do have some in the neck, but actually it's the nuclei that goes in. So you do have some mitochondria present in the head of the sperm. The majority actually stays out. It doesn't, the neck and the tail doesn't actually penetrate the egg, just the nucleus, right, in terms of getting in. This part stays out, all right? But just to give you an appreciation of the size. So let's fight them. We don't have long again to go. All right, so all of these secretions, prostate, seminal, bulbourethra, are very important because they enable the sperm to actually neutralize the environment of the vagina. And when we think about the vaginal environment, it is a very harsh environment. the vaginal environment, if we are to look at it. Right, so when we are looking at it in terms of the female reproductive system, the vagina here is acidic. And why is the vagina acidic? It's because of its proximity to which one, the urethra or the anus, that it is acidic. That's why it is so acidic. Is it because, and you could see it here, because of the proximity to the urethra or the anus?
Urethra.
Yeah, because it's closer. So because of the fact you run the risk of infection from the urethra, this is very acidic, the environment here. You don't want, it's very easy for bacteria to actually get in. So because it's so close. And unlike the males, when because of the penis, the urethra deposits urine externally. This is which is why if you were to compare male and females, notwithstanding the fact that the vagina is acidic, but they have a higher incidence of bladder infections than male because of the fact of the proximity of the urethra to this region here. Right? They do run the risk of infection, let's say coming from the vagina, that could subsequently lead to a bladder infection. All right. But this environment is very acidic. So if reproduction, when you do have ejaculation occurring within the vagina itself, if the acidic environment, if you did not have secretions from the cowpers, prostate, and bulbourethral gland, this area here, it would kill the sperm, literally the acidic environment. So those secretions actually help in terms of in the semen, it helps neutralize this environment. So by extension, if this environment is acidic, what would you say the environment or what could you say about the nature of semen? Is semen acidic or alkaline?
Alkaline.
Alkaline, because you have to neutralize it. Very good. And you know, acid reacting with a base one alkaline gives you salt and water, so it neutralizes it. So other than that, those 500 million sperm, they would die. All of them would die. If it wasn't for the secretions of those glands, they would die right here. They would go no further. All right, so that's very good. All right, let's continue. So we mentioned these, which was one, right, all of the above. Okay, the sperm's nucleus. Where would you find the sperm's nucleus?
In the head.
Right,
Head.
you would find it in the head. If you were to, very good. So if you were to look at a typical sperm, an image of a sperm, you will see that it has a head, a neck, and a tail. And it is within here, you'd have the nucleus. Here's the acrosome, very important. These are lytic enzymes that allows the sperm to penetrate the egg, the membrane of the egg.
Yeah.
Very good, the acrosome reaction. Right, so the sperm's nucleus is in the head itself. I kind of answered this one by extension. The acrosome contains enzymes which allows the sperm to penetrate the egg. All right, so that's important in terms of that. All right, let's go ahead. We almost there. Fight them, fight them. Testosterone. Let's talk about testosterone. What does it do? Does it stimulate the growth of the male genitalia?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Do you need it for sperm maturation?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So from the time you get two, you know the answer is all of them,
Yeah.
right? All of them, yeah, testosterone, right? Very important for secondary sex characteristics during puberty, right? And what are some of the secondary sex characteristics of male? What happens during puberty with men?
Increase hair growth.
Increase hair growth, facial hair, and in the pubic region and under the
Deepening of the
armpits.
voice.
The voice. The voice is just.
The voice will suddenly get deep. Yes. Right. Anything else? And that's about the two major one. Muscle development, you would see it as
Yeah.
well, right? They start to put on muscle mass. I'm not talking about pumping up, but just naturally, they'll start to get bigger. We're not talking body, talking muscle, right? Because it does help in terms of testosterone. It helps increase muscle mass. All right, so these things happen. So very interesting. Let me ask you this. One of the things when you look at, so when we're talking about increasing body mass, if we were to look at bodybuilders, right? Both male and female, even though you do have, oh, that's a bad example there, because that one just, right? Even though I would say quote unquote normally, even though normal is a relative term, right? Males, their muscle mass is always bigger than females. Let's see if we could get a comparison. Even though you do have some of these, okay, this is probably a better one. Yeah, the muscle mass. There's a, right, males just have more muscle mass, and that is due to testosterone. There
Yeah.
are some women, however, I'm speculating here, there are some women that do take testosterone. And as you could see here, their muscle
Wow.
mass, could get very large, but but normally, in a normal situation, the male muscle mass is greater than a female, which is why I always say it's never good for a male to fight a female. It's not a fair fight because males are just natural, physically bigger, right? Okay, let's go ahead. 27. The clitoris is especially sensitive for initiating sexual sensations. True or false?
True.
That is true. And what is the clitoris?
A bundle of nerve endings.
And it's actually if you were to think about it, it's let me ask this question. If you were to do a comparison between a male and a female, the clitoris would correspond to what structure in a male?
The head of the penis. And
Yeah, the penis itself. Yeah, the penis itself. So when we are looking at embryonic development, and you have differentiation, humans, male and female. Okay, when you look at the developing embryo, when you look at images, right, there comes a point, right, there's a point where actually you can't tell the difference between a male and a female. They look identical, right? I don't know if this is probably a better, let me see. Yeah, oh, actually this one, yeah, they actually look identical, but there comes a point when, again, you have what is known as determination, in terms of a sequence of events will happen where the development moves towards either male in terms of development of testes and the penis, or a female where you would have development of the ovaries and the structure which becomes a penis in the male that actually shrinks and becomes a clitoris, which is why it's so sensitive in females, because it does have nerves very similar to the males, right? There are a lot of nerves concentrated in that structure. So for the females, it shrinks down and just remains as a clitoris, whereas with the male, it extends and becomes the penis. So in essence, a clitoris is actually, you could say it, undeveloped penis in terms of post-differentiation, or the post-determination, when you look at development, right? So male development as shown here in terms of the external genitalia. With testosterone, you have the development of the penis, but without the testosterone, you have development of the female reproductive structures as shown here, right? So that's the difference between the two. So it's just testosterone, increase in testosterone at this region post 6 weeks, right? You have the full development occurring of those structures, yeah. So let me ask you this. In humans, do you have hermaphroditism occurring? So then could you have do you have hermaphrodites in humans? So hermaphrodite is where, self-impregnation could occur. Does that happen with humans?
Yes, sir.
All right, somebody
No,
says
sir.
yes.
No.
In terms of, I would say this much, in terms of in the literature says no, right? That it doesn't happen. Sometimes what you do have happening, however, with females is that the clitoris becomes rather large and it looks like a penis. So when you look at those persons, you would see then that they do have a vaginal opening or a vagina, and they also have a enlarged clitoris that looks like a penis. But because of the fact, in terms of in the literature, what we do know, differentiation occurs, and you have a determination effect. Either you move towards male or female, one or the other. That's what the literature tells us, not both. So even though it looks like a penis, it wouldn't be functional. This is what the literature tells us. Does that mean then that you could have somebody who is a quote-unquote hermaphrodite that could impregnate itself, him or herself? The possibility is very low, but it doesn't mean it's not impossible. But what the literature tells us is that no, that does not occur. All right. So you don't have hermaphrodites. What you would have in some instances, you would have females that have a rather large clitoris that does look like a penis, but is not functional because of the fact determination occurs in which you have increased levels of testosterone leading to the formation of a penis, a functional penis. But the literature tells us even if it looks like a penis in terms of a female, somebody who is genetically female, that this clitoris will not be functional, this enlarged clitoris. Okay, so let's go ahead. Okay. Has lost its egg, blah, 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 blah. After the egg leaves the ovary, it goes on. Oh, okay. Interesting question as well. Next question. If a female swallows semen, could she become pregnant?
No, sir.
No.
Why not? Why not?
That's an entirely different system.
Ooh, very good answer. Very good.
And the acid in the stomach killing that.
Acid in the
Right.
stomach, okay.
Yeah, right. You have to remember that the environment of the stomach is exceptionally harsh, HCl. And not only does it have to go through the stomach, if for some miraculous reason it survives that harsh, it still has to go through the small intestine, large intestine, before it is given out through the anus, right? Could it survive all of those things? The probability is exceptionally low that it would survive, right? In terms of going through all of that passage, it would die. And as somebody rightly pointed out, two separate organ systems. You have the digestive system and you have the reproductive, right? So it would have to survive the digestive system, and that is highly unlikely in terms of the sperm going through to get all the way down to the anus and still remain intact. And then again, you have to remember that the vagina is acidic. So let's say if it does survive and it does get across to the vagina, yeah, it doesn't have, remember the semen provides a neutralization environment. It wouldn't have that. So therefore, if it does get it, the acidic environment would kill it. Even after all the struggle just to get through, it would still be destroyed at that point. So the probability of somebody getting pregnant, let's say, in terms of swallowing semen, exceptionally low. One of the things in science, we don't say never, but the probability is virtually almost zero that could occur. All right, very good answer there. Okay, when we look at fertilization, where does fertilization normally occur? Normally. Right, the uterus, right, the uterine wall. So you have implantation in the uterine wall. Let me look at it, right? So here you have ovulation from the ovaries. And how does it get into the fallopian tube from the ovary? Because it is released. How does it get in? The fimbriae, right? So the fimbriae, you have these projections and they move like tentacles and they create like a suction motion. So the egg is sucked in. And ideally in the neck of the fallopian tube, this is where you want fertilization to occur. Remember that long journey, the 1.5 miles, right? So it has to travel, and ideally you'll have fertilization occurring at this point. And then it continues to move down, and then ideally as well, implantation in the uterine wall occurs. And that's where normally it happens. Could it occur elsewhere in terms of being implanted?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
sir.
that is known, and
Fallopian
what type of fallopian tube? Yes, yes, yes.
topic pregnant.
Ectopic, very good. Ectopic
Yeah,
pregnancy,
ectopic
right?
pregnancy.
Right.
So for the answer for 35 is oviduct.
This one, the fertilizer, oh, sorry. Um, yes, the oviduct. So I didn't answer that one, yeah. Well, yeah. Fertilization or the neck of the fallopian tube or the oviduct. Yes, E. Right? Or also known as the neck of the fallopian tube. Okay? So the oviduct. All right, the inner lining of the uterus, what is it called?
And
A.
Right?
The
So endo, inner,
endometrium.
endo, inner, right? So inner lining of the uterus is rightly called the endometrium. And that's where you have implantation occurring. And then, of course, you have blood vessels going towards it to engorge it with nutrients from the mother itself. Do you have mixing of the blood occurring? Does the blood actually mix between developing embryo, well, developing fetus and the mother?
No, sir.
No. Well, let me rephrase that. That was a badly. Normally, comma, you don't, right? You could have, sometimes you do because you do have ruptures occurring. We're talking, let's say, if some kind of trauma, let's say the mother falls, and you have some of the capillaries, they could burst. So you could have mixing occurring, in cases like that, if some kind of trauma. But normally it is always kept separate. That's very important to remember, right? It's separate. Okay. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah. So let's have three more. Human chorionic HCG maintains the corpus luteum until the placenta begins its own production of progesterone and estrogen. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what it does. Human chorionic gonadotrophin, that's what it does. It maintains the corpus luteum in terms until the placenta begins its own production of both progesterone and estrogen. That's what it does. What does the placenta produce? Another P, placenta and P, something beginning with P. The hormones, progesterone and estrogen, very good, right? So that's what that's its function in terms of the placenta, production of progesterone and estrogen. When, in terms of the birthing process, the placenta is also known as what? In terms of a common term,
Afterbirth.
yeah. Why do they call it the afterbirth?
I guess because it is
Comes
come
off
out.
after.
But yeah, some things in life are not difficult, right? It literally comes out after birth, right? After the baby is born. Some people, what do they do in terms of tradition? Some people just plant a tree on it. Anybody know about that
Or
one?
eat it.
Yeah.
Some people eat it.
Oh, yes. Oh, to each his own. I don't want to be judgmental because certain things, some of the things we do, some people might find very strange. Yes, not so. Do we eat eggs?
Yeah.
Right? Some people, there's certain tribes, let's say in outback of Australia and even in Africa, they will not touch an egg, right? Because they view it as an unborn, be it whatever creature it is. So imagine if they say you, they'll be saying, "Oh my God, you eat unborn! Oh no, unborn!" They wouldn't touch an egg, But we we do it routinely. So similarly, when you think about people eating the placenta, it might sound weird, but as I said, everything is relative in terms of strange. Let's go. 52, a vasectomy has an effectiveness rate of almost 100%. That answer will be,
True.
yeah, yeah,
True, sir.
yeah. So once you got those two, in terms of when you look at a vasectomy, right, that's for the males. In terms of what they do here, right? They cut the seminal vesicle as shown here. Well, well, sometimes they cauterize it. Here they're showing them tying it off. I am not a urologist, so I don't specifically know, but I want to say sometimes they would cauterize as is here, bilateral. Here they're showing it tying off, right? So that way, then, in terms of, so in a case like this, will the male still produce sperm?
Yes.
Right. What would happen to the sperm that is produced? Let me see if somebody thinking.
It
Think
will be
outside the
lesser.
box. It would be less, all right. But some will be produced, right? What would happen to it? It would die, right? And what else? So, and when it dies, what will happen to it? It will be, if you're a body and you're a machine, what do you,
Inactive, sir.
inactive, all right, you're very close, and if I don't get anything, we'll take that. It's broken down. It's literally broken down and reabsorbed. The nutrients are reabsorbed. Yeah. So that's why I say is destroyed in that regard. But it can't go. They're produced still, but it just can't, follow the natural route and be ejected via the urethra. So it actually is it stays here within here and is broken down. Good. All right, two more and we're done. You realize I've been saying that for a little while, yes? The morning after pill, it works to prevent ovulation. True or false?
False.
False.
Okay, so how does the morning after pill, RU486, how does it work?
It prevents implantation
Right?
Yeah.
And
or
mhm.
fertilization, I think.
Well, yeah, if you don't have, yeah, implantation, correct. By extension, you wouldn't, well, fertilization in the first case. Would it prevent fertilization? Mm, I want to say no, but let's check it out. So that's RU486. Um, what is the emergency contraception? You actually might be right. Contraception means fertilization. Prevent of pregnant with that's, oh, no. Princeton, okay, so there's a reputable source. It's a different job from blah, 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 blah. How work really comprehensive. How does it work? I really didn't want to say. Right? All three are available. I'm only as the morning after. The term is misleading. Maybe soon after, immediately after unprotected intercourse. Let me see how does it work. Only it contains no estrogen. Once the progesterone has been studied, I'm not seeing effectiveness. Mechanism. Containing the estrogen, ethinyl, estradiol, and the progestin, levonorgestrel, can inhibit or delay ovulation. But that's one type. To impair the ovulation and luteal function, right? Okay, too much information here. Let me see if I can get it in a shortened form. It prevents ovulation, so as I'm saying, mifepristone, that prevent progesterone from binding, block ovulation. Which actually works for 5 days. It's called both that's why. Right. All right. It's generally accepted as a pure progesterone endometrium of the menstrual while treatment during mid-induced bleeding or for a second bleeding.
But so sometimes there is a disclaimer when you see the
Of
the
course they'll have. Yeah. In fact,
You
I
can't
can
get
see
pregnant.
why they would have a disclaimer, especially when you have endometrial bleeding. Yeah, because with some people, let's say for some odd reason, if it's severe and they're alone, they could literally bleed to death then, in some instances. So of course, I'm sure they'll most definitely have a disclaimer on it. When they don't want to be sued. Right, for treatment during the proliferative phase suppresses follicular development and postpones the estrogen and LH, but does not follow endometrial. It brings on bleeding despite normal levels. It doesn't affect the menstrual cycle if administered after, but conditions to really slows down endometrium. So if the endometrium, you wouldn't have implantation, right? So wouldn't have implantation, and in some cases leads to the shedding of the endometrium. So what, in terms of what I'm saying here, is that it prevents the implantation of the fertilized egg. But in terms of preventing fertilization, I didn't see that one. Fertilization is really just a function. Well, that'd be a function of ovulation. I didn't see anything about preventing ovulation there. So what I would say, it prevents implantation. That's from what I see. Will work. So it doesn't prevent ovulation, right? But implantation, it prevents implantation. It blocks the receptors in the uterine lining. Which ones did we see there? The progesterone receptors in the lining. Okay, last one. Last one. Virally sexually transmitted diseases include AIDS, herpes, warts, hepatitis, all of the above.
So all of the above.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah. Right? In terms of this, as we know, AIDS is caused by HIV and its various types. HIV 1 and 2 and the various strains associated with it. All right, so we'd stop there for today. Okay, last one. Baldness is believed to be caused by the male sex hormone. Which one? Baldness. Which male sex hormone do you know? The most famous of them.
So
Yeah,
testosterone.
yeah. Right, is believed to be caused by testosterone in terms of baldness. Right, so bald-headed people, do they have high levels of testosterone? Is there a correlation then between the two? No, there isn't a definitive. It's caused by it, but it doesn't necessarily mean they have, let's say, they are higher than normal levels of testosterone. But some people are more susceptible to it, genetically predisposed then to react to the testosterone manifesting itself in baldness. Okay, all right. So we'll stop there for today. Stop. Let me. Jingle bells.